Hey everybody, welcome back to another tutorial here on my channel. I'm your host Boomer, and today we're going to focus on Supreme Part 2, which is the cores. Now I've gotten a ton of questions, and I tell you, cores, I honestly feel Supreme was put together to test me as to whether or not I would truly go Boomer with it. And on the Royale MC server where I play, I am going through with it, trust me. I've been at it for a couple of months now. And it's been a slow, arduous process. There is no fast way through it other than maybe cheating your way with EMC tech. And cheating's probably not the right word. It's not the intent of the add-on, but it's an option. So anyways, we're going to dive into these. I'm going to show you guys a end game setup for Supreme, and we're going to talk about how you can automate all of these cores. So first, let's take a look at the cores that are in here. There are 6. So under components, so there's a core of block, which is 9 different vanilla blocks within the world. There is a core of death. You have to kill an insane amount of mobs. So we'll break each one of these down a little bit more. The core of life is the farming one, I guess the way to put it. The core of color is all 16 dyes. The core of nature is the 6 overworld logs, the 2 nether logs, and the wither rows. And finally, the core of alloy is the 9 alloys that the Infinity Expansion quarry produces. And so with that, let's kind of take a look at this setup here. So I have 5 of the 6 cores fully set up. I don't have the core of death. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But to start with, inside of Supreme, to make the core of color, all of the colors are actually fully automatable inside of the virtual garden. Now, there are 12 colors that are vanilla capable from all of these plants. There are 4 that if you used a different option, you would have to come up with this process on your own. So bamboo does not make lime. That in vanilla is green and white, or you can take a sea pickle and smelt it. The brown mushroom does not produce gray. That's white and black. The chorus fruit does not make purple, that's red and blue, and the twisting vine does not make cyan, that's blue and green. But otherwise, through this process, and you're simply bypassing the smelt of the cactus, you're not creating more, it's going right to the dye. You can automate all 16 colors. And so with the virtual garden, all you have to do is put 1 up there, and as you can see, it's producing them pretty fairly quickly. All right, let's move on to the next one. So this one is the core of alloy. So this one, I believe, is my snow. Yep, gold. So again, I have the fastest possible setup in a tech generator. I have the Lucky and the Cloner Bees, which give me 9 stacks. And then I have the Berserk and the Accelerator, which drops the time altogether. It drops the time down to 78.5 seconds. This is the fastest possible setup per stack. You can run a faster setup, but you will get less every single time. So per stack, this is 78.5 seconds divided by 9. It's roughly 8 2/3 seconds per stack. All right, moving on to the next one. Here we have set up the core of nature. Now, if you look in the virtual garden, it's producing 1 log and 1 leaf. The recipe is 2 logs to 1 leaf. So you may need additional options or some other way to increase the wood so that it matches the speed of the leaves, or you just send the leaves to a quantum storage and say void access. Either way, it would be fine. The downside that you have to this is, let's go take a look at the recipe for the cores. Excuse me here, go back. All right, so for the core of nature, the 6 overworld logs are overworld supremes are 2 logs and a leaf, but the nether ones are 100% stem, as is the wither rows. So you have to produce more stems than you are overworld logs to produce that core, all roughly have all 9 items together at the same time. So in this case, you might do 2 of each vanilla log, 3 of each nether and the wither rows, and theoretically, that's approximately an even Steven trade. It might not be exact, but it's going to be pretty close. All right, the next one we're going to move into is the core of block. So again, the fastest possible setup with each of the blocks in the overworld. Now you'll notice I only have 8. There is no cobblestone card for the tech generator. So in this, Gosh, I keep doing that. I hate when that happens. I have stone quarries running. The downside to these is you actually need 8 stone quarries to keep up with the tech gens based on the production rate. So I only had 2, so when we get over here, you might be able to see that that's a little bit different. All right, the 5th one, the virtual gardens, will use all the 9 farming items. So we'll take a quick look at these. So if I go to the core of life, for example, potato. But you see honey, 6 stacks of honey for all 9 of these. Now I've actually have 5 tech generators running on the fastest possible setup with the honey card. You actually need 6 to keep up. I'm slightly behind on the amount of honey. If I were caught up, some of that honey might have stayed in the chamber. But as it is, I keep using it all. So doing the math, 6 tech generators on the fastest possible speed to the level 3 virtual garden should work. However, again, that's a level 3. So if you're using a level 2 or level 1, it's less. All right, let's move on to the core of death. Now, there are a number of different ways. Oops, got to get Boomer an iron sword. There's a number of different ways you can collect mob drops, right? You can have spawners drop from height and kill them that way. You can use from core Slimefun. You can use the empowered butchered or any of the butcher androids. In Supreme, we have the mob collectors. You simply put in the appropriate item to harvest the item you want. So if I had a spider in there, for example, if I want the eye, I need shears. If I want the string, I need a sword. Now, you do have to replenish your swords. Putting unbreaking on here, the unbreakable ruin does not affect it. It does not look to that. That is by design. As far as cost and effectiveness, the mob collectors are insanely expensive compared to a mob sim chamber from Infinity Expansion. They do use less power, and you can dial in on one specific drop. Now, for example, Infinity Expansion's Mob Sim Chamber harvests spider, eye, and string. If I were to put just a spider in here and harvest the eye, it will get more eyes than a Mob Sim Chamber. But the Mob Sim Chamber will have more drops because of the string that's in there. So you have to really decide what do you want. Now, Mob Sim Chamber takes up one space just like these do. You could put 1,000 Mob Sim Chambers. You could also put 1,000 mob collectors around your mob. But unless you are playing with cores, like I play with iron ingots, it is probably better off, at least especially in the beginning, to use a mob sim chamber to get your drops. All right, so as all those items go back to our storage unit, so I don't have core of death items going back, so that's 5 out of the 6 cores. Those items then need to be turned into Supreme items, and so we use the electric core machine, and if you just caught it, 1 Supreme sand just got crafted, got sent back into the system. So the electric core machine 3s. And unless you are producing 64 per Slimefun tick of that item, you do not need a core machine 3. A 1 will be more than sufficient. But if you are producing insane quantities, then you might want to consider upgrading. But look at the recipe first. You have to decide if that recipe is really worth the small speed gain. No, it's not small. I mean, it is a little significantly faster. But in the overall terms, I don't know. It would take months really to see a huge time savings. All right. From there, all the Supremes need to be set up to automating a core. And so I'm going to come down here, and if you do want to take a look at this or grab a screenshot, you can, just to see how it's set up. I'm sure there are other options. This is probably the cleanest looking one I've been able to put together. I mean, some of these bridges aren't necessary. I could have gotten away with 1 on each side. Same thing here. I simply put the extra bridges for appearance. But you will need pushers on all 5 sides and then a grabber on the 6. There's just no way around it. And so when we've got all these going into the electric magical machines, remember what I said before about the wood? The overworld produces at roughly twice the speed. And so you need to alter your formula to get that to balance out, because now I'm going to get stuck waiting on these 3 to play catch up. So it might even be a 2-to-1 ratio instead of the 3-to-2 I mentioned earlier. Either way, you're going to have to produce more of the Crimson and the Warped and the Wither Rose ones. Same thing over here. if you take a look, the cores, remember I said I only had 2 stone generators running. I probably needed 8 to be able to keep up with the production rate of the other ones, because now it's going to hold up my core production. So if I want to take a look, this has been running for, oh, I don't know, give or take an hour. If I want to see what cores I've got, well, I've made 1 of each so far. Now again, depending on your setup and what's on your server, there may very well be much faster ways to do this. This is endgame supreme setup minus the items that you would need for the core of death. You need 23 more storage units, 9 more of the electrical cores, and 1 more magical. I always forget the name of these things. 1 more of these, magical machine. But other than that, if you were truly endgame, this would allow you at least to automate all 6 cores with the additional blocks and mobs and or setup that you would need for core of death. It is truly the deepest endgame Slimefun add-on there is. It is definitely testing my abilities to keep up. I've been adding on the Royale server. I have literally 200 mob sim chambers running right now, just trying to keep up, just to get enough core so I can start working toward the endgame machines. It's a lot of work. It's been fun, but if you don't have patience, this might not be for you. You might have to go buy them. But anyways, I want to thank you guys for watching. I appreciate your support. And don't forget, when you're playing Slimefun, you got to go boomer or you got to go home. We'll see you later.